Austrian Grand Prix is round 3 of the 2016 FIM Extra World Championship. After witnessing the 2015 title decider, fans in Vienna Neustadt will look forward to a closer battle for victory this year, with 2 different winners in the opening 2 events. Round 2 of the campaign took the riders to the sport's Catalan heartland for the Spanish Grand Prix in the Palau Sant Jordi, with a new leader after Adam Ragger's surprise victory in Sheffield. Eddie Carlson could only manage 7th with 3 failed sections and a 20-mark score on the qualifying lap, but the Swede did get the better of wildcard Jaime Busto thanks to his superior performance in Section 5. Alexander Ferrer took 6th thanks to a clean result in Section 4 and was on course for a place in the final before an error in Section 5 left him out of the running. A dropped mark in Section 1 cost Takahisa Fujinami a top 4 position. The veteran recovered well with just 2 dropped marks in the last 3 sections to take 5th. Gironi Fajardo squeezed into the final by just a mark and looked out of place in the top 4. 5 fiascos and just 2 successfully completed sections. The Spaniard took 4th. Albert Cabestan moved ahead of his fellow countrymen with a superior performance on sections 2 and 3, but dropped back from the front runners with 3 consecutive failed sections. Adam Ragger matched Cabestan on the opening 3 sections before moving ahead in the second half of the lap. But he dropped 4 crucial marks back from Tony Bow over sections 3 and 4 and was unable to recover. The reigning champion returned to the top of the leaderboard with a typically excellent display. There was a brief moment of concern after a spectacular fall in Section 5, but Bow continued on through the final 2 sections to maintain his 4-mark advantage and take a first victory of the season. Level on points with 1 victory apiece, Tony Bow and Adam Ragger lead into Austria. Positions 3 to 6 were unchanged in Barcelona. Tony Bow was always the favourite to take the 2016 championship. Victory in Barcelona returned him to the top of the leaderboard, but defeat in Sheffield has made his path to the 2016 title somewhat more complicated. There was a moment where I was running in 4th and I had to recover from there. Second position in such a short championship is the best you can do if you can't win. And of course the victory in Barcelona restored my morale. We gave 100%, we knew it would be complicated for us. The key is to use the home element to help, not to hinder. It's an extra pressure, but the Palau Sant Jordi is very special for me. This time it was a little bit different because of how the championship was going, but also because of the way I rode, which was very strong. Bow's 7th consecutive Barcelona Extra victory was far from comfortable. A spectacular crash in Section 5 left him limping away, and it took all of his strength to return to the arena floor. It was a critical moment. I suffered an impact on my back, which was a little uncomfortable at first, but nothing more than that. It was more mental than physical because I was so high, and I was able to continue on in the race, which was the most important thing at the time. With a month's break between races, the intensity drops somewhat. It's now a bit more about gym work, since indoor requires a bit of explosivity. This week, we will do a bit more cardio work before returning to the gym for more exercises. We're really happy being here in Andorra. It's been a very positive winter. We've been able to train well. And aside from that, the altitude is helpful, particularly before the start of the season. After a year here, my strength has definitely improved. I'm very happy, and as much as anything, it's a plan for the future. Being in Andorra will help me to extend my sporting career.
Sobre todo es un plan de futuro, ¿no? Yo creo que Andorra me va a servir para alargar mi carrera deportiva.
Vienna Neustadt last year was a surprise for me. It was a new race where we'd never ridden before and a new organiser for the championship. It was the toughest race of the year and one where I was really able to open out an advantage. So I loved it, and I hope that the level of the sections is the same this year. It should be a trial with some big steps and some technical challenges. Achieving my 9th title there, in the way I did it, leaves me with great memories.
Pruebas técnicas, soy muy positivo y aparte, como has dicho, conseguí el nuevo título y de la forma que lo conseguí y tengo muy buen recuerdo.
The Arena Nova is the venue for round 3 in the 2016 title race. One of the most compact arenas of the series will guarantee an intimate atmosphere with an expected 5,000 capacity crowd for the event. Franz Kadlec took the wildcard position for a second consecutive season, joining the Spanish top 4 and bringing a 5th different nation onto the sections. Eddie Carlson was only separated from the bottom of the standings in Austria 2015 by wildcard rider Franz Kadlec. And the Swede suffered an early setback in his battle with the German in 2016, riding first through the sections after his double-lane defeat. But it was nonetheless a promising start in Austria for Carlson, who scored just a single mark on observation in Section 1 to set down a marker to his German rival. Having failed to beat a permanent rider in the opening 2 events of 2016, Carlson would hope for a more competitive end to the campaign. Franz Kadlec failed to get through even one section in his 2015 wildcard appearance and failed 3 sections in his second career Grand Prix appearance. But this was a more promising experience as the German's rise in the sport continues. He levelled the scoring with Carlson on Section 1 after registering a single mark on observation. Carlson and Kadlec were still level coming into Section 4 after consecutive failures in Sections 2 and 3. Carlson recorded the first and only clean of his lap, laying down the gauntlet to Kadlec and also putting in a performance that would eventually help him to better Alexander Ferrer's lap total. Franz Kadlec was unable to match the Swede's ride through Section 4, accruing 2 marks on observation for leaning and dropping in arrears in the pair. Carlson dropped a mark on Section 5, leaving the German just a mark behind, but with 2 sections to ride. After a Section 6 fiasco, the Swede went on to record a lap total of 17, enough to take his season's best result of 6th. Meanwhile, the youngest rider in the field dropped 8 marks over the remaining 2 sections, with a 3-mark total in Section 5 and a failure to close the lap. His 21-mark qualification total was enough to give him 7th position as he took his first scalp in X-Trial competition. Two fifth-place finishes in the opening 2 rounds demonstrate Takahisa Fujinami's proximity to the top 4, But the Japanese rider again failed to make the breakthrough into the final as he fell short in Austria. His 2-mark score in Section 1 immediately left him with an uphill struggle as he sat a mark behind Carlsen, Kadlec and Ferrer at the same point. The results would eventually prove decisive in his more traditional battle with Gironi Fajardo over the last qualification position. Alexander Ferrer took 6th place in both Sheffield and Barcelona, finishing agonisingly close to his targeted final space in the Palau Sant Jordi, just 1 section away from making the cut. But his result in Austria was little short of a disaster as he failed 4 sections and dropped to the back of the pack. Takehisa Fujinami was the first rider to battle through Section 2, moving ahead of Alexander Ferrer by a 2-mark margin that he gradually extended through the lap. The 2 marks accrued on observation during the section moved him onto a total of 4 after 2 sections. The average qualifying total required in the opening 2 events of the season was 8 marks. Fujinami needed to improve on the remainder of the lap. Watched on by teammate Tony Bow, Fujinami was again the trailblazer on Section 3, the first rider to make it through. And with no failures on any of the sections, this was the Japanese rider's most competitive display of the season. At the halfway mark, he sat on 6 and added just 2 more marks in the remaining 3 sections to finish with a highly creditable qualification total of 8. At the halfway mark, Alexander Ferrer sat in the same position as Carlsen and Kadlec, having become the 3rd rider to fail sections 2 and 3. But a mistake on section 4 dropped him onto a total of 16, just 1 mark from Eddie Carlsen's 17-mark total, and with 2 sections still to ride. Section 4 had proved Ferrer's undoing, as he needed a clean in section 6 to match Carlsen's lap 1 score. And in the trial's signature staircase section, he could only drop helplessly to a 5, as Carlsen and Kadlec had before him, to finish on a 22-mark total and at the back. Gironi Fajardo took 4th in qualifying in both Sheffield and Barcelona, but finished only 1 mark clear of Takehisa Fujinami in Spain. He was again under pressure from the Japanese rider in Austria, looking to beat the veteran's 8-mark total around the lap. A clean ride through section 1 was the perfect start, the first 0-mark score and 2 marks better than Fujinami's effort on the same section. But Fajardo struggled through the trunks on section 2, leaving himself with only 5 marks to play with and 4 sections to ride. 2 marks dropped in the 2 following sections meant he would enter the final sections with 2 marks to spare, and knowing that a failure on the section would cost him a place in the final.
Yes, congratulations. 1 foot more, 3 points. 5 seconds left. 4, 3. 3 points.
Albert Cabastan moved a mark ahead of Fajardo on section 2 as he enjoyed an excellent qualification performance. Dropping marks in just 2 sections, Cabastan impressed on his way to 3rd position on the lap.
Genauso ist es, aber er macht es. 2 Punkte sind angezeigt, die er hat, und er bringt es nach Hause. Schaut mal, wie er das macht. Schaut, wie er das macht.
The first rider cleaned through section 3. Cabastan moved another step closer to progression. At the halfway mark, he sat 2 marks up on Fajardo, 6 marks ahead of Fujinami's total, with 3 sections still to ride. Fajardo could afford a maximum of 2 marks in section 6 without being forced into a tiebreak. And he took a measured approach to the tower, matching Fujinami blow by blow on the section by taking his time and accruing only 1 mark on observation. The advantage of riding after Fujinami, leaving Fajardo aware of what he needed. He did exactly that to finish 1 mark in front of the Japanese rider and to guarantee progression. Albert Cabastan booked his place comfortably ahead of Fajardo and set down just a 3-mark lap total. The final pairing saw joint championship leaders Adam Raga and Tony Bow enter the arena to close out qualifying. Needing only to better Fujinami's 8-mark total to guarantee progression to the final, the pair set about one another and claiming the psychological advantage. Raga was the first to concede ground, dropping 2 marks through section 2 on observation. But the first trunk that had forced all of the riders to take a dab cost Bow 2 marks as well, and the scores were tied between the sport's 2 heavyweights once again. The 4 qualifiers were decided before Raga and Bow tackled section 6, each 6 marks clear of Fujinami with only 5 marks left on the table. Adam Raga became the first rider to clean the section as he heaped the pressure onto Bow and guaranteed himself at least a tiebreak for qualifying's top spot. The reigning champion matched his rival, dropping marks in just 1 section after a section 6 clean, and went on to victory in the tiebreak to top the qualification standings. The same qualifying quartet, but a shake-up of positions 6 to 8, with Alexander Ferrer surprisingly at the bottom of the pile, and Eddie Carlson enjoying his first top 6 finish of the campaign.
I'm very happy to after my lighting, but again, just 1 point different for pass to the final. little bit unlucky, but I'm happy for my lighting. So I hope the next rounders I'm making them final and I make a podium also.
The qualify was more easy than I was thinking from beginning, but I make some stupid mistake. And yeah, disappointed about that, but in the end, final good position, and I'm happy.
The same four finalists for a 9th consecutive event as the podium battle is resumed in Austria. Section 1, a series of 7 rock monoliths for the riders to cross. This, in theory at least, should be the easiest of the final sections. Gironi Fajardo, runner-up in Vienna Neustadt last season, as he made one of only 2 podium appearances. In fact, that second place result in 2015 remains Fajardo's most recent top 3 finish. Fajardo battling today for a 25th career podium. Underway well on section 1. Past the tallest of the steps in this rock section. It's just about maintaining balance and keeping inside the time allowance. The minders had a couple of looks at the watch just to keep Fajardo fully informed. He's got 2 rocks still to cross, and time is starting to elapse here for Gironi Fajardo. Under pressure late on. Doesn't want to create himself any difficulties though. On observation in the latter stages of the section, taking some time and labouring over the penultimate rock here. Gironi Fajardo with a burst to the finish, but the time klaxon has gone, and that's a 63-second completion of section 1. So Gironi Fajardo accrues 1 mark on time. He was cautious in the latter stages of that section, just trying to avoid any marks on observation, and it's cost him a time penalty mark instead. Albert Cabestan next up. The 2002 world champion, looking for a 4th consecutive podium that will continue his run since victory in Oviedo last year. Cabestan suffered his worst performance of the season here last year, failing to get through even 1 section in the final. His qualifying effort suggests a superior result is on the cards tonight. He's just accrued a mark there on observation. Just clattering into the rock with his sump there as he moved through the section. Now he's got to make sure he gets through within 60 seconds, otherwise he'll drop behind Gironi Fajardo in the standings, even as early as the opening section. Little by little, a minder calls as he reaches towards the finish. Cabestan is through inside on time, but he's got that mark on observation. So it's 1 apiece for Cabestan and Fajardo. Cabestan shaking his head in frustration at that. It does give both Adam Raga and Tony Bow an opportunity to move ahead of their 2 podium rivals. Adam Raga next up. One of only 2 former Austrian Grand Prix winners in tonight's field. The 2003 victor, the 2016 round 1 winner and joint championship leader. The top 2 in the standings last out over the sections for this grand final in Austria. The second half of this section that's posed the 2 finalists the most difficulty so far. Adam Raga moving past the rock that cost Albert Cabestan a mark. Did so on his back wheel to avoid any dramas. And he's just got to stay within the 60-second time allowance now to come through clean and move above Cabestan and Fajardo in the standings. Adam Raga, inside on time, the first clean on section 1 in the final, moves in front of Cabestan and Fajardo. And Tony Bow has got to try to match that clean now to remain at the top of the standings. Tony Bow, the comfortable winner of the 2015 Austrian Grand Prix, enjoys the level of difficulty preferred by the organisers here. The winner last time out in Barcelona, looking for back-to-back victories that would give him a clear championship lead. The 9 times world champion, bidding for a 47th career victory, looking to run clean through the first of the sections in the final to maintain the scoreline at 0 marks apiece between Bow and Raga. Cabestan and Fajardo both dropping an errant mark through this, which in theory is the easiest of the final sections. Tony Bow working his way through comfortably, one of the more technical challenges. Just about avoiding errors, and Tony Bow remains mistake-free through section 1. It's Bow and Raga now at the top of the standings without dropping a mark. Cabestan and Fajardo both dropping a single mark there in section 1. Now on to section 2, a series of logs laid out horizontally and vertically for the trunk section. The sizable step in the latter stages of the section could well prove a deciding factor between the riders here. A first opportunity to open a major gap for the favourites here in Austria. So far so good for Gironi Fajardo. Won't want to drop any further behind the front two, Bow and Raga. Does have that 1 mark to make up after a mistake, really, a miscalculation on time in section 1. Now this is the step that I would suggest poses the biggest problem. Can Gironi Fajardo make it up? Significant height, very narrow run up, and down goes Fajardo. You can see the height of that step because the minders have to scramble up a ladder to make it, to be able to catch the front wheel of their rider if required. Was required in the case of Gironi Fajardo, who drops down to a first 5-mark score of the final and onto a total of 6. Cabestan 5 marks up, of course, but he's got to tackle that step now as he takes on section 2. Cabestan, one of the most experienced riders in the sport, just over a dozen races away now from X-Trials all-time appearance records. Can he use that experience to get to the top here? No, he too has had to be caught by his minder, and that's a 5-mark score for Albert Cabestan on section 2. So Cabestan and Fajardo 6 marks apiece. Bow and Raga clean after section 1, but still have this seemingly impossible step to take on in section 2. Adam Raga, the resurgent 4 times world champion. More podium finishes than any other X-Trial competitor, and Tony Bow's main challenger for this 2016 title race. Tony Bow will know exactly what he needs to do on each section as Raga goes before him, which wasn't the case when Raga took victory in Sheffield. Bow back to the top last time out in Barcelona. Can Raga take on the toughest obstacle of this section 2? Front wheel over the lip, but he has to be caught by his minder, and it's game over in section 2 for Adam Raga. Well, the man who tends to make the impossible possible is going to have to do something very, very special here. An opportunity to move 5 marks up on Adam Raga. It's Raga 5, Cabestan 6, Fajardo 6. If Tony Bow can manage to go clean through this section 2, then he will open up effectively a 1-section lead. Seems unlikely that he'll be able to go clean. That's if he can make it to the top at all of that seemingly impossible vertical step. There's the run-up. It's not much to shout about. It's less than the full length of a bike. Bow works hard to get to the top. Catches himself at the bottom of the section. Is he going to have another go? Yes, he is, but still no. Again bounces down to the ground and comes out of the section. Tony Bow conceding defeat after 2 attempts at making to the top on section 2. So still the 4 finalists separated by just 1 mark as we move on to section 3. 3 towers made of brick-like concrete blocks here. The real challenge will be achieving the section within the 60-second time allowance, because this is one of the longest sections of the night. On to the first tower, Gironi Fajardo. He's going to have conceded a mark there, I would suggest, on observation, just for leaning at the top of the first tower. That is indeed the figure signalled on the arena floor. Second tower for Gironi Fajardo. This is a steeper step. He's made it halfway, but falls off the back of the machine, and that's a 5-mark score for Gironi Fajardo. A second consecutive failure as he moves on to 11 marks at the halfway mark of this final. Albert Cabestan now looking to better that effort. If he can do so, he will move in front of Fajardo. These two have matched one another's points tallies through the opening 2 sections. Kabastan with impressive alacrity early on in this section 3. Knows that working his way through the section in itself within time will be a challenge. The first tower completed. Now this is where Gironi Fajardo succumbed to section 3. Can Albert Kabastan make it up? He's got 2 steps, he's done it! Albert Kabastan to the top of the second tower on section 3. Moves past the obstacle that caused Gironi Fajardo to fail. And now with a golden opportunity to move in front of his perennial podium rival. That's the klaxon for 60 seconds. Kabastan won't make it on time. He is going to concede some ground in this section 3. He's going to drop something. Got to try now to get through the remainder of the section as quickly as possible. He's up and through. 79 seconds. It's 1 mark on time. And Albert Kabastan is delighted with that effort. He moves on to 7 marks and 4 marks clear now of Gironi Fajardo. Adam Raga is next up. 2 marks in front of Kabastan. He will be most concerned about trying to match Tony Bowe, but of course he doesn't know yet what the reigning champion is going to be able to do to this section 3. That's going to be 1 mark on observation for Adam Raga. So already slightly scrappier than Albert Kabastan, who is impressive to the top of the first tower. This the second tower where Gironi Fajardo failed the section. Adam Raga building up. Watched on by his minder. Bounces to the top, he slips back! Drama for Adam Raga in section 3. A failure that matches Gironi Fajardo's effort, and he slips to 3rd in the standings. Tony Bowe will think that all of his Christmases have come at once. Onto the first tower for Tony Bowe then. 2 marks up on Albert Kabastan. 5 marks clear now of Adam Raga. Still clean on section 3. Making it through within the 60-second time allowance will be a challenge, even for the great 9 times world champion. But if he does it in a single mark as Kabastan did, he will hold a 1 mark advantage over Albert Kabastan and a 4 mark advantage over Adam Raga, who failed the section. Tony Bowe making things very difficult here for Adam Raga as we approach the halfway mark of this event in Austria. Time elapses just before Tony Bowe gets there. He's frustrated with himself, cries out to his minder. 62 seconds, he's made it in. 2 marks outside on time. It's going to be a 1 mark score, but Bowe wasn't far away there. And after 3 of the 6 completed sections, it's Bowe who leads it on 6, Kabastan on 7. Raga now 4 marks behind his championship rival Bowe on 10. And Gironi Fajardo at the bottom of the pile as we get underway with section 4. Section opening with a hop over 4 cylinders before the toughest obstacles. Fajardo building up to this slanted step, taller than the rider's height, just centimetres of run-up. Fajardo makes it onto the platform, but then has to bounce back for a second attempt. Didn't quite have himself settled in how he wanted. Take 2 for Gironi Fajardo. Minder trying to calm him down. Makes it onto the platform again, but this time falls off the left-hand side of it and down to a 5 mark score. 3 consecutive failures for Gironi Fajardo. His hopes of a podium starting to slip away. Next up is Albert Kabastan. 2nd place in this Austrian X-Trial as it stands. 3 marks in front of Adam Raga, just 1 behind Tony Bowe. Adam Raga will be hoping that Kabastan can get in front of Bowe, because if Bowe wins with Raga only 3rd, that will do severe damage to his championship hopes. This the step that halted Gironi Fajardo. Can Albert Kabastan make it through? More challenges still to come in section 4 if Kabastan can make it past the first major obstacle. He's up onto the ramp, bounces up to the peak, on the back wheel and over the other side. Great stuff to the cheers of this Vienna Neustadt crowd for Albert Cabestan. This is a second major step of the section. The height of 2 blocks here for Albert Cabestan, and he can't make it. Falls back to a 5. So he got slightly further than Gironi Fajardo, but still not far enough. And he does slip to 3rd in the standings. This could be a get-out-of-jail-free card for Adam Raga. Only 2 marks in front of Albert Cabestan coming into this section 4. So he has a very clear idea of what he needs to do to move in front of his rival. And back into 2nd position here tonight. The first of 2 major steps. This is where Gironi Fajardo fell back to a 5. Adam Raga breezes it on the back wheel. Now this is the step that stopped Albert Cabestan in his tracks. Gironi Fajardo had already fallen by the wayside by this point. Adam Raga, 60 seconds have already elapsed, bidding to become the furthest through this section 4. Has to take a mark on leaning, but does get to the top. So it's going to be 1 mark on time and 1 mark on leaning as a bare minimum. On the back wheel to the finish, 77 seconds. So it is just 1 mark on time and 1 mark on observation as Adam Raga moves back level with Albert Cabestan. Cabestan's failure through section 4 opening the door to Adam Raga, but it does also give Tony Bow a great opportunity to move 1 step closer to victory here tonight. 6 marks in front now of Raga and Cabestan, 10 ahead of Gironi Fajardo. Bow will be the leader into the final 2 sections regardless of what happens here. The reigning champion now holding a 6-point lead. He's up the first step. Now the second. This is where Adam Raga conceded a mark. As well as dropping a mark on time, I would suggest that Bow is going to exceed the 60-second time allowance as well. This one of the tougher sections in this final tonight. Bow makes it to the top, but just like Raga, has to use all of his might and the base of the bike as well. So he's matching Adam Raga's performance through this section 4, but of course he had a significant advantage over Raga coming into the section. Down the other side in 72 seconds. It's 1 mark on time, 1 mark on observation. A 2-mark score for both Bow and Raga in this section 4. And Bow leads Raga by 4, with Cabestan matching Raga through the opening 4 sections, and Gironi Fajardo slipping out of contention once again. Dropping 1 mark right at the start of this section 5. And another as he hauls his bike to the top of the first of a series of letters here. Section 5 is the first of 2 wooden sections with a series of steps and platforms. I would suggest that the first step into the section, probably the most difficult. Gironi Fajardo has already made it through that, but did cost himself 2 marks in so doing. That will move him on to 18, and as it stands, 6 marks back from Cabestan and Raga. And time fast running out for him to get himself back in contention for a podium here tonight. Gironi Fajardo through with just those 2 marks on observation, comfortably inside on time, and does indeed move on to that 18-mark total. And now some way adrift of the front-running trio. Albert Cabestan straight up and onto the section. No mistakes and without dropping a mark there. Another great start to a section for Albert Cabestan. It's been a good performance tonight. He'll be disappointed though to have dropped to that 5 in section 4, because up till that point he was right in contention with Tony Bow for the victory, let alone some way clear of Adam Raga, who's now pulled himself back into contention for 2nd place. Bow leading it by 4 over Raga and Cabestan, who's so far faultless in this section 5. Albert Cabestan guaranteed at least 3rd if he can become the first rider to go clean through this section, which he does. Guaranteed a place on the podium, Albert Cabestan. Gironi Fajardo will have to hope for a real slip-up now from Adam Raga if he's going to make it into the top 3. Because Raga will also be guaranteed at least 3rd if he can match Albert Cabestan and run clean here. Desperately needs to get the better of Cabestan. Just can't afford any other rider between himself and Tony Bow in the overall standings tonight. would give Bo too great a lead going into the final round of the campaign. So far so good for Adam Raga, matching Albert Cabestan through this section. Both riders come through clean then, and both remain on 12 with just one high pressure section still remaining. It's going to go down to the wire in that battle. Tony Bo can secure his place on the podium as long as he doesn't fail this section. Realistically, he's just looking at trying to maintain that 4-mark margin to take with him into the challenging section 6. Bo with just one failed section so far. Cabestan and Raga have each failed 2. And that's the reason for Bo's advantage that sits at 4 marks as he continues on clean through section 5. Raga and Cabestan have both completed it clean before him, having watched Gironi Fajardo struggle at the start of the section. And Fajardo is now resigned to 4th position. Tony Bo comes through then, clean on section 5, and maintains that 4-mark advantage. So it is going to be a high-pressure last section because any of 3 riders can take the victory here tonight. It's the second wood-built section, the signature hazard of the Austrian X-Trial. Riders have to go up both sides of this 9-step staircase. The steps are taller on the right-hand side of the section, and time is going to be a major factor as well. Just making it to the finish will be a big enough challenge, let alone doing so within the 60 seconds that are allocated to the riders. Fajardo coming back down then, now has to tackle the harder obstacle of this section 6, the right-hand side of the staircase with its 3 very steep steps, starting with the tallest. Fajardo gets the sump up onto the crest of the step but is unable to reach forward, and it's a 5 for Gironi Fajardo. He was already resigned to 4th position anyway, 6 marks back from Cabestan and Raga. Just unable to put a fine point onto his night. And now sits 11 marks back. The rather emphatically taken 4th position for Gironi Fajardo. He only narrowly made it into the final itself, and he's been some way adrift of both Raga and Cabestan. 4 failed sections from 6 for Gironi Fajardo. Just 7 marks salvaged here today. Albert Cabestan next up. Guaranteed at least 3rd position already, but tied with Adam Raga. Needs to score as few marks as possible in the hope of returning to 2nd place in the final section. Now this is where Gironi Fajardo fell back to a 5. Can Albert Cabestan avoid the same fate? You can see the tyre tracks where Gironi Fajardo tried to make it up and slip backwards. Albert Cabestan gets his front wheel up, he's over. Great work from Albert Cabestan. Demonstrating once again his technical ability and experience. Time elapsing on section 6. Under some pressure, Albert Cabestan falls back. This was one of the toughest sections last year, and it's proving so again in 2016. Adam Raga with a golden opportunity. In terms of remaining in contention for victory, he can afford a maximum of just 1 mark. That's going to be tough. In the battle for 2nd with Albert Cabestan, anything other than a 5-mark score will secure the place. Of course, if he does score a 5, the last 2 podium positions will go to a tie-break, and the tie-break here tonight will be a deciding double-lane race. Raga hoping that he won't need that to separate himself from Cabestan, accruing a mark, making it to the top of the first half of this section. The second half has been the tougher for the riders so far. Fajardo and Cabestan both failing to make it through. Raga already with 1 mark to his name. He'll lose another on time as well at a bare minimum. Up the first step. The second step with basically no run-up posed great difficulties for Albert Cabestan, who failed to make it up. Raga with an opportunity to move ahead and take 2nd, but he can't do it. Falls back down, and we will have a tie-break over 2nd position. Raga's result there also guarantees Tony Bo the victory, regardless of what he does in this section, but I'm sure he'll be competing for pride. Kabastan and Raga both failing 3 sections. Bo only missed an opportunity to capitalise on the near impossible section 2. And now sits 9 marks up on Raga and Kabastan. If Bo can make it through this section, it will draw the biggest cheer of the night. Bo never celebrates until he's completed all of the sections. So even though he secured victory after Raga and Kabastan failing section 6, Bo will not celebrate until he gets to the top here. The first step completed, but this is where both Raga and Kabastan fell back. The crowd urging him forward, he's made it. He's got to haul himself to the top now. Putting himself diagonally across the section to give himself the maximum possible run-up and the best possible traction. 1 mark has elapsed on time. But Tony Bo makes it to the top to celebrate in Austria. Victory by a significant margin, made more emphatic by his dramatic climax to the night. Bo didn't even need a result from that section 6, but he got it anyway. Another psychological blow to Adam Raga's championship bid. Now he takes on Albert Kabastan in the battle for second. It's a double-lane race, one of the most picturesque double-lane races of the season, in fact. A level start for Raga and Kabastan. Both looking for second here tonight as they skirt around the outside of the fountain. Albert Kabastan has a slight lead. Extends it at the turn. Raga slips down, foot down, and Raga is too far behind surely to recover from there. And that could be enough to give Albert Kabastan second. And what a favour that does for Tony Bo in the 2016 World Championship as Albert Kabastan gets between the 2 title favourites to take second in Vienna Neustadt. Victory in the double-lane race gives Albert Kabastan his best result of the season and gives Tony Bo a significant championship advantage at the expense of Adam Raga. I made so many mistakes in the final. I rode well on the qualifying lap, but in the final I just didn't feel comfortable. A real shame because it makes the championship really tough. A very exciting end to the final. And actually it was exciting right from qualifying because Fuji put in a really good score on the first lap, which put us all under a lot of pressure to make the final on a day like today. In the final, I think I rode well. It was a bit of a shame because the 5s that I suffered were by millimetres, and without them I could have challenged Tony. But anyway, I'm happy with second position, and now the gap to Gironi is quite significant. We still have Marseille to go, but in terms of the third position overall, we've made a good step forward today. We can leave Austria satisfied. We all suffered on the first lap getting through. It was difficult to open any margins. But the second lap was much more difficult, a bit like last year, where we could really make a difference. It was a very good trial and I'm very happy. I just have to thank Albert for getting in between us, which gives me such a big boost in such a short championship. But you saw how difficult it was to qualify today, and with Marseille still to come, this championship will be difficult to the finish. Albert Kabastan narrows the deficit to Adam Raga whilst opening a sizable advantage over the chasing pack in his battle for a championship podium. A second consecutive victory for Tony Bo gives him a leading margin for the first time in 2016 as he takes an 8-point lead from Austria with Adam Raga restricted to third. Second place will now be enough for Bo to seal a 10th world title at the final round in Marseille. Bo is back in command.